Well, if you couldn't tell from the title and thumbnail, I'm not a fan of the Red Death. I think the character has so much potential but was ultimately wasted on the show. I actually have a lot to say on the subject, so I figured it would be fun to discuss it here. Without further ado, let's analyse Red Death.
I am vengeance.
First of all, as I just stated, I think Red Death was wasted. Over the years, there have been so many great Flash villains that the audience have wanted to see. They delivered on some incredible ones, like the manipulative Reverse Flash who created and trained Barry across the first season of the show. Or the incredibly scary and intimidating Zoom who in a lot of ways paralleled Barry and proved to be a formidable foe. Even someone like Bloodwork, who appeared later in the show's run, delivered. He was able to manipulate and bewitch Barry like no other villain has. So surely the outcry for the Red Death would be heard. I mean, we had references to Red Death during the show. The Future Flash Museum in Series 5 alluded to Red Death's insane death count. This in itself essentially did three things. First of all, confirm the existence of the character in the universe. Second, hint at the possibility of this character appearing as the show has done this before. And thirdly, highlighted what an immense threat this villain is. The Red Death sounded terrifying. I was so stoked to potentially see this villain on screen. In terms of overall structure, the first 3 episodes were way too slow and the last 2 episodes way too fast. I think they should have dedicated at least 2 more episodes, if not the full series runtime, to flesh out the story and the characters more. So, showrunner Eric Wallace had this annoying habit of breaking his seasons into weirdly structured parts. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for multiple arcs. I think it allows variety and gives more opportunities to explore fan favourite villains and plot points. To be honest, I think he had it right in Season 6 with the 2 arcs being split by the Crisis crossover. You had the first half of the series dealing with Bloodwork. It was a fun and tense self-contained little flick. While the back half of the series had Mirror Master as the main villain and gave Iris and her role as an investigator more time to shine. It was decent at the beginning, especially with ties to Black Hole. It just completely fumbled the ending. In a similar vein, Wallace could have and should have made Red Death the villain for all 13 episodes. Or failing that, either Cobalt Blue or the Reverse Flash, not cram the 3 of them plus other speedster villains into one short series, along with the awful interlude episodes which nobody enjoys. Barry's rogue team were way too overused. Use them in the heist episode and then that's it. Maybe keep Pied Piper as a possible ally, but that's it. The main cast is already way too over-bloated at this point, not to mention the fact we have Red Death and her legion of rogues all on screen. Every scene feels way too filled with pointless characters that add very little to the show. Apart from the Flash and Red Death, the only other major character here is Mark. The rest feels so pointless. Which is a shame, as I think in their single appearances as the focus, both Captain Boomerang in the opening episode and Pied Piper in the second episode are quite solid. Red Death needed to kill more people. She overtook the planet and all we got was one off-screen death. If the writers insisted on Goldface and the hotness, then Red Death should have killed them to prove how threatening the character is. That should have been her first interaction with Barry, forcing him to witness it. I think that would have been such a dynamic introduction to her character, especially as it would have been such a good follow-up to initially seeing her on screen. The moment where she knocks Barry and the rogues to the ground is decent. This would have been a much better follow-through. In that moment, both the characters in universe and us as the audience would realise what a threat she is. They could have had an episode set in her timeline where we see her version of the Flash stopping her and all the build up to this corrupt version of the character. It would have been more impactful, especially if it was done in a flashback setting. I'm imagining something similar to how Arrow used to format their episodes. They could even do it in a way that makes Red Death seem right at first, before she becomes corrupt and takes the Flash's life. It would be a much stronger way to give her some depth while fleshing her characterization as well. An exposition dump from her to Iris is such weak storytelling. It's so lazy. Hell, even a single flashback or montage would give us some depth, but no, we get nothing here. There needed to be an explanation for where Batwoman was, and it could have been as simple as Red Death kidnapped her, like Zoom did. It would have made her team up with Barry in the end more meaningful. Have the reveal be Oliver Queen, who stole Wayne Tech, would be the tie and would explain why Ryan was kidnapped. It's the final season of the Arrowverse. What better way to celebrate than doing a version of the Red Death where the Green Arrow becomes the corrupted Fusion? Or if you insist on having it be Batwoman from another Earth, then this plot point still works. At some point in the past, she knocks out Ryan and steals all of the Wayne Tech before heading to Central City. It just feels that much lazier for there to be no real explanation, especially as they mention several times that Ryan is missing. While we're on it, they say her full name every time and it's so jarring. Like, if you want to have some throwaway dialogue between two characters to establish that Ryan Wilder is Batwoman, done, the audience know who she is. Don't keep saying Ryan Wilder over and over. Have Keown or someone ask who she is, and you're done. It's so dumb, but typical of Wallace's writing. I think the character needed more of a rampage to live up to the version described in the future. As I said, for all of the threat that she was supposed to be, she essentially did nothing in the final episode. The best thing about it is that her fight scene with Barry isn't awful. Some of the CGI elements are quite fun to watch, but it did seem like Barry should have been the one to stop her. Batwoman magically appearing for some reason does not feel satisfying in the least. It's like, bam, there she is. Where was she? I don't know, but the point is she has arrived in the last possible moment to punch a variant of herself. In the end, she was very lacking and a massive waste of a villain. While I do think, in terms of overall storytelling, the Forces arc is objectively worse than this, I do think Red Death is the single worst villain on the show. She was the one I was really looking forward to, but they just butchered her character so badly in the end. Well, that's what I think anyway. What are your thoughts on Red Death as a villain? I would love to hear them in the comment section down below. This is actually the 250th upload on the channel, which is mad to think about. So why not show some support by hitting that like button and subscribing? What better way on the path to 500 uploads than doing that? Well, I will catch you all soon. Goodbye.